Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. You know, I was recently looking into how we can actually get that finalized, heavy-hitting commercial sound, but without totally overcomplicating the master bus. And well, I found something absolutely fascinating. So, if you're a modern producer chasing high-end analog sound with digital convenience, stick around, because we're in exactly the right place.
Let's be real for a second. We all know the pain of stringing together these massive, messy mastering chains. You load up, 5 different plugins, they absolutely devour your CPU, and somehow, after all that tweaking, the track still sounds kind of sterile, or worse, clipped. Well, today we're looking at a real game changer, the Masada Audio Gold Master and Capture V2 Engineering Suite. It's basically designed to handle all that heavy DSP lifting, so you can get back to just trusting your ears. All right, here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with analog soul, digital skin, move into saturation and tonal shaping, check out master dynamics and punch, explore the vintage 12-bit circuit, look at the metering and capture deck, and wrap up with the complete Masada ecosystem. Let's go. Section 1. Analog soul, digital skin. We're going to start right at the foundation, looking at the core philosophy and the primary engine of this absolute beast of a suite. Right off the bat, looking at the layout, you'll immediately notice how it keeps all your master bus control completely contained in one single scalable chain. You've got your input and EQ, shape, compression, the 12-bit circuit, limiter, output, literally the whole shebang, perfectly laid out. There's absolutely no jumping between windows or guessing your signal flow. It's all just right there in front of you. Analog soul, digital skin. I love this quote because it hits the nail right on the head. This is the entire mission of Masada Audio, giving you that heavy, physical punch of authentic vintage hardware, but wrapped up in pure digital convenience so it slots seamlessly into a modern workflow. Now, the absolute star of the show here on the core engine is the auto gain compensation. This is absolutely crucial because it locks in your perceived loudness, so no more getting fooled into thinking a louder sound is a better sound while you're aggressively carving out your tone. You also get A/B state testing for instant comparisons, mid-side processing for that massive stereo width, and up to 4x oversampling to keep everything ultra clean and aliasing free. Section 2. Saturation and tonal shaping. Let's look at dialing in the input and see how this suite actually builds warmth and clarity right from the very beginning.
So here are your premium analog saturation choices right on the input stage. You can keep it totally clean? Sure, but why not add some rich hardware warmth? You can switch on iron for this thick, asymmetrical transfer curve that just adds massive low mid-weight and second-order harmonics. Or, if you need something a bit snappier, hit nickel for lightning-fast transient response and pure third-order punch. It's like having 2 totally different hardware units in one click.
Okay, we all know the rule. Muddy low end absolutely ruins masters. But the built-in 30 Hz protection high-pass filter acts like a safety net, keeping your sub-bass incredibly tight and mud-free. And hey, if the track feels a bit thin, the subharmonic generator lets you dial in deep, synthesized sub-frequencies. Then, use the 120 Hz monomaker switch to perfectly anchor all that low-end weight dead center, exactly where it belongs. Now, what if your master sounds a bit dull after you've locked down those lows? That's where the broad EQ section steps in. The air shift mode is basically magic. You hit one switch and it instantly expands the high-frequency shelf, opening up the top end with this incredible, icy platinum glow. Plus, you get to watch it all happen over a gorgeous reactive FFT spectrum with these glowing, heat-mapped particles. It's super cool. Moving on to Section 3, Master Dynamics and Punch. Let's talk about gluing the mix together and making sure your track hits incredibly hard without ever clipping. Under the Shape and Punch transient design section, there's a stereo widener to push your mix literally outside the speakers. But here's the real lifesaver. If your kick drum is getting totally buried in a dense mix, and let's be honest, we've all been there, the specialized kick punch sidechain trigger is your best friend. It's specifically engineered to make your kicks smack right through the master bus. Problem solved. To really lock all those elements together, you get classic analog VCA glue compression, bringing that snappy, tight response, plus a dry/wet mix for super easy parallel processing. Then it feeds right into a brick wall limiter, and the flexibility here is just fantastic. Alongside your ceiling and gain push sliders, you're getting 4 distinct limiter modes: original, punchy, tight, and smooth. So you can tailor that release behavior perfectly to whatever genre you're working on. All right, Section 4, the vintage 12-bit circuit. Adding the mojo. Let's see how we can inject some of that highly sought-after vintage character straight into a pristine master. Over on the right side, right next to the limiter, is the dedicated 12-bit circuit. This is the secret sauce. This is exactly where you dial in the crunchy, legendary sound of classic vintage samplers directly onto your master bus.
You are completely in the driver's seat with the grid here. There are 5 distinct circuit modes to choose from, giving you varying degrees of classic decimation and aliasing. Want to round off some of those harsh digital highs? Just crank the drive and warmth knobs to push some analog tube distortion. And finally, use the Mojo Blend knob to parallel mix that sweet lo-fi texture directly into your clean master.
Section 5, Metering and the Captured Deck. We are now arriving at the ultimate workflow hack and honestly the absolute game changer of this entire plugin.
You know the old saying, you cannot master what you cannot measure? Well, Gold V2 gives you dual LED input and output tracking, plus a center character meter. But the real star here is the dedicated -14 LUFS target meter. LUFS basically measures perceived loudness over time. Hitting this -14 target ensures your track is perfectly optimized for modern streaming platforms like Spotify or Apple Music. No more guessing, just perfect levels.
And just look at the capture deck. You get these gorgeous dual plasma waveforms backed by a ghostly dynamic FFT frequency mist. But wait, it's not just there to look pretty. This visual feedback is actually tied to an incredibly powerful built-in transport deck.
This right here is a massive workflow hack. You can literally bypass complicated DAW routing altogether. You just drag and drop your raw .wav files right into the built-in audio player, or you can capture your DAW output and live hardware jams in real time. Once your chain is sounding perfect, you just hit the one-click export button, and boom, it bounces your fully mastered file directly to your desktop. It is unbelievably fast. Finally, Section 6, the complete Masada ecosystem. Let's connect the dots and see how this beautiful piece of software bridges hardware and digital environments. A lot of producers wonder how Gold V2 fits with Masada's other powerhouse, the Archive V2. Well, here is the ultimate production secret. You use the Archive V2 on your individual tracks and drums to build a gritty, authentic 12-bit or 16-bit foundation, giving you the exact saturation of legendary samplers like the S950 or SB1200. Then you bring all those process stems right into Gold V2 for the final VCA glue, the stereo width, and that massive commercial loudness. And the ecosystem extends directly to your physical hardware. Sure, it's cross-platform for Mac and Windows, running as a VST3 and AU. But here is the absolutely critical part for you hardware beatmakers. It operates as a true OS X standalone application. Thanks to automatic USB-C detection, you can master completely without a DAW using devices like the MPC Live 3, the MPC XL, or the MPC Sample. One extremely important heads up though. If you're using the MPC Sample, you absolutely must ensure your output is strictly set to 44.1 kHz. If you don't, it won't route perfectly into the standalone application. But get that right, and you have a flawless, DAW-less mastering setup.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? A finalized commercial-grade master simply doesn't require a messy, CPU-heavy chain of plugins anymore. It's time to stop overcomplicating the process and go back to trusting your ears. The real question I want to leave you with is this. If you let this engine do all the heavy DSP lifting for you, how much more time could you spend doing what you actually love, creating the music? Something to think about.